As I said, most Ghanaians would want to be located in Accra. Those who are overseas are sending money by the droves to build houses in Accra. Corporate bodies want to build in Accra. Investors want to build on our lands. And therefore, it has become rather profitable to sell lands. And consequently, when you have a chief in an area, another one is installed so that he could also be enabled, if you will, to sell lands, creating greater confusion. But the Traditional Council is establishing a process whereby the registration of chiefs, I'm talking about divisional and sub-chiefs, would be tightened so that the disputes would be avoided. We are also trying to have all the divisional chiefs list out areas where they must have chiefs and where those chiefs should be the only acknowledged or recognized ones, so that when they sell lands, their land sales would be brought to the Mantse's office for concurrence. Now, signing or giving concurrence to land sale does not mean that the Mantse is taking away the right of a chief or right of a family or right of a group to sell their land. After all, if it is theirs to sell, there's very little one can do about it. But the concurrence would ensure that the seller is the authorized grantor of land, and that he has the appropriate title of ownership before he can transfer his ownership. So we would be able to streamline land problems. And whilst we are doing this, we would also want the government to assist us in the oversight of all the lands which were given to it in colonial days and in subsequent periods for public purposes which have now expired, to desist from giving extensions to private individuals, and to ensure that whatever extensions are applied for are acquiesced in by the divisional or area chiefs, and that the consideration paid is given to them, either in part or in parcel. This would also help to depress the inspiration of anger which our youth take to the streets when they attack their chiefs. I think it's a duty which is forcefully pressed upon us, and we should do all we can to address them in concert with the government. I don't believe in all that is said commonly and rather jestfully too, that all our lands have been taken away from us and so on, because I'm also mindful of the fact that we sell our lands rather consciously in contemporary times, and that we may be willing to even do deals with the very people I'm talking about who seek to have extension of the colonial leases.
Yes,
but we should have some order to the process.
Yes, talking about the leases, most of the lands in Accra are sold outright. They are not leased. And then talking about royalties to the stool, how are royalties to the stool made in the Ghana state? Has it been consistent? Has there been a break? The Ghana state should be a rich state by now.
Well, regrettably, it isn't.
Considering the bank's head office of almost all banks in Ghana are based in Accra.
Yes. You see, we have said that there's no area in the world where capital cities are developed by the natives. It's usually the corporate bodies who, as social responsibility, contribute towards the development of the environment in which they operate. This is one of the areas we want to tap for resources, for our development cooperation. But to answer directly your remark, yes, the leases that are giving out were at one time giving, as freeholds. But thanks to the previous administration, the Rawlings government, leases now take the place of freeholds. So all lands which are devised or giving out are done as leases. They are no longer sold outright. The problem is that the lease duration is usually too long in my assessment. Somebody gives you 50 million cedis, which you can dispose of in a couple of years, and he has title to your land for 99 solid years, meaning 4.5 generations of any given family before you would come back, before your lease property would come back to you. So it is not the most pleasant of circumstances. There are the alternatives. You can lease out your property as investment so that whatever is developed on it can bring you annual income. This is a possibility which we haven't explored. We also have, as you said, the royalty, or shall we say tribute, which will come to the stools. We have found that those who sell lands are more interested in the sale value. They take the millions of cedis they are giving, and the annual lease payments which they are supposed to collect are left unattended, and it's a waste of income to them. As to rates are invested as a right in the Accra Municipal Authority, and therefore they are taken away from the Gar state. The traditional authorities have no participation in the sharing of rates.
Should that be the case?
No, we have. If you remember, I made some remarks to the Accra Municipal Assembly very recently, in which I said that we are looking for a more amicable arrangement where the Ghana state should be giving a percentage, appreciable percentage of the rates they collect from land and land usage. As it is now, the Ghana state or similar states to us are not sourced by government. We are supposed to be partakers in what you call governance of our state, the national state I'm talking about. And yet, whilst all the other divisions of governance are funded by the central authority and in some instances the district assemblies and the metropolitan assemblies and so on, chieftaincy is not funded. And therefore, they have to find devices of catering to their needs. And this is why some have no hesitation selling lands and so on. But we have to find a much better way of administering chieftaincy in this country. It is not enough to have a ministry administering the affairs of chieftaincy if that ministry is unable to fund them.
Have you weighed the volume of work ahead of you?
It's staggering. But I'm also mindful of the fact that I'm not dealing with a clean slate. If you're dealing with a clean slate, you can put values there and you can promote the values and they would be imbibed rather readily. But I'm dealing with people who have had years of habits which have waxed upon them. They are not willing to change because change is always threatening. There are people who are too comfortable with their circumstances that to persuade them to look for alternative ways are rather unwilling to reason or adopt those other ways of doing things. Accra is in such a state that I cannot fathom the possibility of rebuilding them. Rebuilding the quarters of Accra overnight.